Tonight on our rapid response panel, Zerlina Maxwell of the Grio.com and Dylan Scott, reporter for Talking Points Memo. Dylan, we'll start with you first tonight. You wrote up a good piece on this on Talking Points Memo. How closely are these religious freedom groups working with state legislators to, lack of a better term, quarterback these whole things through?
Well, I think the bills speak for themselves, Ed. A lot of them share similar language, and as we reported this year, the Alliance for Defending Freedom group that you mentioned was on the ground in Ohio and Arizona, which were two of the first bills that were introduced this cycle. And so you have that kind of foundation laid where these groups were kind of in on the ground floor, and then you have sort of an organic grassroots process where a lawmaker in Missouri sees the bill in Arizona and says, I can more or less copy that word for word and bring it over to my state.
Zerlina, doesn't Citizens United just open up the floodgates for this type of legislation?
Absolutely, and I think that if we did an overlay of all of the maps, right, so Alex sponsored legislation on stand your ground or gun rights, and also the infringements on women's rights, many of these things are going to line up because you'll see in many of these states, model legislation is being given to legislators, and they introduce it and propose these bills without making any changes or even reading the legislation. And so the bottom line here is that this group is promoting religious freedom for a very, very small portion of Christians based on the premise that if you're Christian, then you must be opposed to gay marriage, and that's not actually true. A lot has changed since 2005 and that quote that you just played.
Well, I wonder if we're going to see a turning point here that now business is going to be the driver of freedom. I mean, I would like to think that Arizona would have done the right thing with or without the Super Bowl, but the pushback Dylan, was so strong from the business community, there was going to be an economic impact, and that's the last thing any governor wants to have in his or her state. Was this a game changer, this veto, and what's the future of it?
I think so. I think you saw the way that the business community rallied against the bill in Arizona. And for Republican governors, conservative, moderate, wherever they fall, the business community is somebody that they have to pay heed to. And when you have them united in the way that they were, you see what the result was in Arizona. And already I spoke with the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. There's a bill, as you said, there. And they're already speaking out against the bill. You've seen it in Mississippi as well with the bill that's currently under consideration in that state. So as long as the business community is allied with the gay rights community, it's hard to see these bills moving forward.
What do you think of that, Zerlina? Is this a turning point on legislation like this? I mean, there is a pushback, and even some of these Republicans that said that they really didn't want to vote for it. They thought it was good for their caucus.
Right.
Obviously, they're looking for some media cover on that one, that they're really not that bad. I mean, they did it the wrong way if they want to get it done. Let's put it that way. But does this change the game on how these are going to be presented and debated in the future?
Oh, I definitely think so. I think this is all about the money. And I think that the fact that Delta Airlines came out and put a statement opposing the laws in a number of different states, including Georgia, because, as you know, their base is in Atlanta. And so I think that, you know, just like the civil rights movement, the justification and the basis for the end of segregation was interstate commerce. It wasn't out of the good faith of the hearts and minds of Americans. It was because of the money and the business interest back in the 60s. And so I think that we're seeing that again here. And I think that, you know, anyone who wants to put forth bills that infringes rights on some Americans in the name of the rights of a very small minority of Christians, because again, just being Christian does not mean you're opposed to marriage equality. And so I think that they're on the wrong side of this issue. And like Dylan said, as long as the business interests and equal rights are on the same side, they will continue to lose.
And Dylan, it's discrimination, no matter how you look at it. To tell someone that they can't be served in a public place, to render judgment on someone based on even how they look. How are the conservatives going to walk away from this? How are they going to be able to generate popular thinking with society just turning so much against what they have proposed?
Well, that's a question that I don't think they have a good answer for now, and they're continuing to search for. I think they were surprised by the backlash to the Arizona bill, and so in a way they're starting to regroup. To their credit, I think they've been transparent that this is a reaction to the court rulings and the popular movements that have advanced marriage equality across the country, and now they're trying to figure out how they respond to that and how they sell it to people.
Well, I'll tell you how they're going to respond to it. They're going to fund up big and they're going to sell more fear. That's how it's going to work. Great to have you with us tonight, Zerlina Maxwell and Dylan Scott. Thank you so much. Coming up.